Hey, this is Matt Mayoko at NBC Sports Bay Area. A little bit of a different video today. Up to this point, I think pretty much everything I've done has been like timely updates with injuries, what the team is looking for, where the team is, where they're going, just very much looking ahead, either talking about that day or the upcoming game or whatever the case may be. Chris, who's an usher on the ground level club there at Levi Stadium over on the east side of the stadium. Every home game, I see Chris. We talk a little bit. He has his own podcast, by the way, Turned Down for What, which is a podcast on the EV industry. But anyway, he said, maybe you should try more timeless things or, post every now and then kind of a timeless thing about, my job, how I approach it, my philosophy, a day or a week in the life, well, whatever. And I thought, oh, that's a pretty good idea. And this during the bye week might be a good opportunity for me to do that. So that's what I'm going to do today. Unfortunately, kind of brought about by a tragedy within the 49ers family. So um, that's kind of going to be the jumping off point with Charvarius Ward. He posted on social media on Tuesday, I believe it was. He posted this. We are heartbroken that our beautiful baby girl, Amani Joy, passed away Monday morning. She was the best blessing we could have asked for, and her joyous spirit made us smile from ear to ear. She taught us to have patience, trust, and a positive outlook on life. She showed us true strength and bravery. She overcame adversity at a young age and was always happy, lighting up every room with her smile. Having the privilege of being her parents and seeing the world through her eyes has changed us for the better. She will forever be daddy's best friend and mommy's little girl. We'll miss you and love you forever, Monty Joy. And so, I mean, that's some heavy stuff there. And it's it just kind of hammers home the point to me that, these are all human beings that we cover that have their ups and downs in life away from the football field. And so, probably as I've grown into this job, being, covering the NFL for as long as I have and covering the 49ers for as long as I have and building, knowing the people behind the scenes, not just the uniform number or the player out there, and probably having kids of my own has kind of taught me or, created this sense within me that, there's always something. There's always people are always dealing with stuff that you just don't know about. And, Jennifer Lee Chan, my colleague at NBC Sports Bay Area, wrote a story last year where Mooney was very open with her about his daughter, her birth, and how she had some physical issues going on with her, and it was complicated early on after her birth, and where Charvarius didn't see that connection with Amani Joy until several months into her life. And once she stopped being, I don't know, standoffish, I guess, or really started smiling when he was around and accepting of her, that's when his game turned around. And I always kind of think back to a conversation I was having with someone in the 49ers front office years ago, and we were talking about a certain player and how he wasn't playing pretty well, or very well, and I thought that he should be playing better. And I remember the front office individual telling me about stuff he was dealing with off the field, family issues that were really bothering him. And I just remember this 49ers person telling me how a person is feeling and what he's going through off the field often reflects on how someone is performing on the field. And so, I always try to kind of keep that in mind. And that's why, it's good to get to know these guys a little bit and just to kind of see, um, bring in the human aspect of it into what they're dealing with. I do a thing called 49ers overreactions. And Monday, I looked at, some of the thoughts from the fan base about where, the overreactions are. And there was one person came in with trade trade Mooney for defensive line help. He's hurting more than he's helping lately. And after learning the news of his daughter and, assuming that the family had been going through some tough times here recently, it just kind of makes you, I almost answered that question of, about the possibility of trading Charvarius. And then the news came out and I was like, oh my gosh, you just don't know what people are going through. And I mean, I'll even draw it back a week or a week earlier, when Deebo Samuel played 4 snaps in that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. One of my first reactions was, he didn't play due to an illness. Why wasn't he, I heard stuff, why wasn't he out there on the field? He's got to suck it up and play. And then you find out he spent 2 nights in the hospital. And so I remember thinking, man, I'm really glad I didn't address that as like casting any kind of doubt on why he wasn't out there. And then find out later that, the dude had pneumonia. He had fluid in the lungs. So, you know, there's just that human aspect of stuff. And, for Charvarius, it's the emotional side of what he might have been going through with his family. Um, this summer, kind of on a different note, but similar vein, I think. This summer, I wrote a lot about Brandon Ayuk and, the possibility of trades. And I pretty much nailed down that the 49ers had engaged in trade talks and basically agreed to frameworks of deals with other teams. And, you know, when I reported it, someone in the 49ers, told me, boy, I wish you hadn't reported the level of detail, naming the names such as Amari Cooper, who would have been coming over from the Cleveland Browns if there had been a trade with the Cleveland Browns. And the thing that was said to me is, you got to remember, that, and the person didn't blame me, said, I realize you have a job to do. And if you have that information and you have it solid, I understand, your feeling to report it. But, you also got to, from this person said, from my standpoint, I think about the families involved and, for a player to hear his name in trade talks, that's not just, it's not just informing the fans, but it's, you're dealing with personal issues with the player, his family, and all the stuff that could generate. Um, and so, I know that's a different topic in a sense, but clearly Amari Cooper in this case got traded a few weeks after I reported that the Cleveland Browns were willing to trade him to the San Francisco 49ers. Um, you know, like I said, in dealing with individuals and players, and the locker room is open, so I'm around these guys. What I've tried to always do is, um, not take personal shots at guys. I don't make fun of people who screw up. Never make fun of injuries or treat injuries in a lighthearted manner. I just remember several years ago, Fortners had a player who, frankly, was always injured or was injured, a lot and finished a lot of seasons on injured reserve. And it was during off-season workouts when I wasn't around the team. He sustained an injury that would carry over into the regular season. And someone at my organization, was basically in charge of covering for me and wrote the story. And I think the story even started something along the lines of, stop me if you've heard this one before, but, so and so is injured again. And I saw that. I thought, man, just how disrespectful and insensitive, could that possibly be? And it was from my organization. And so I immediately called our desk or someone, higher up and said, "Hey, we need to change that, make it a more, straightforward and informational story rather than, basically making fun or just being so insensitive towards somebody who sustained an injury." Um, and so, it doesn't mean you can't criticize somebody who doesn't play well or who makes a mistake, but as long as it's fair and accurate, then, I would never have any issue, going up to a player that I criticize or levy some sort of criticism toward. Because if the player has an issue, can I just say, can I ask the question? Is it fair and accurate? And if the answer is yes on both cases, then I think we're fine here. But I would have a really difficult time, going to a player that I made fun of for falling down or made fun of for, getting injured or whatever the case may be. So, I do see a lot of stuff on social media, of course, that has given rise to this whole notion, I think, in some ways of dehumanizing players. And certainly not everybody on social media does that, but I do see it a lot. And, I see when a guy drops a pass, an outcry on social media is he's garbage, he's trash. And I just can't think of anything worse to call another human being than garbage or trash, and especially someone who is trying his hardest, doesn't want to mess up. That's his profession. And then to call somebody garbage or trash who drops a pass or overthrows a receiver or gives up a sack or whatever the case may be. And that's basically anytime I see somebody refer to another person as that, that's what the mute button is for. And trust me, I've muted a lot of people on social media through the years for calling someone or some group of people, something like that. Now, obviously, there are bad people. And if a bad person does bad things to other people or takes advantage of them, um, whatever, is overtly, unapologetically racist, or doesn't show empathy, whatever, lies, incites violence, or whatever the case may be, that's one thing. But making a bad play in a game is, not a reason to call someone call someone a garbage or trash. Now, um, I like I said, I try to be fair and honest, and it doesn't mean you can't be critical. It's about fair and accuracy. That's all I try to do. And I don't have personal relationships with players. I don't think. There are certain players on the 49ers that I have, I think really professional relationships with. And through the years, I think that's been the case as well. I would never call, anybody a friend while I'm covering them. But it is interesting how if you are, if you build that trust, if you have that mutual respect, how players view you after their careers are over. And I think that's the key is just, building the mutual respect and, being honest and truthful and having that trust. But it's really interesting where, there many years or years after a former 49ers player has retired or is no longer playing. And if I see them in a setting, there's this kind of unique bond that comes about. And I mean, I can't tell you how many handshakes, how many hugs, how many, daps there's been through the years with players that I used to cover that I never would say that, I had a tight relationship with that player. But I think what happens is there's that shared bond of, we see these players a lot. We see these individuals a lot when they're playing. And I think, when they see someone in the media, and I've talked about this with like Matt Barrows and Cam Inman and other reporters, it is very interesting. I think, their time in the NFL, some of them, it's a very short period of time, 2, 3, 4 years. Others, it's a longer period of time, 5, 6, 7, 8, up into, uh, 10 or more years. It represents a great time in their lives where, we as media members are there. We're showing interest in them as players, as individuals. We're going to talk to them, and it represents, I think, like this familiar face they saw that they associate with the greatest time in their lives. And from that, I will say that there are bonds post career that are built from that. I mean, I was asked at a speaking function last week, like who's the one player you covered that you think the highest of, or and there've been a lot. I mean, a lot of guys, and I could name many players, but I'll just go back to like basically the first major star I covered was Steve Young, or at least on that team, and it was a small gesture, but it was a big gesture. Just knowing my name, a couple weeks after I started covering the 49ers, Steve Young was calling me by my first name. And not everybody, certainly fewer than half of the players that I cover call me by my name, that's fine. I don't need that. But just for somebody at that guy who was at the pinnacle of his career to, basically take the time to learn one of the guys who's going to be in the locker room a lot, and a younger guy, a guy who was just getting into the NFL locker room, and Steve Young at that point probably had 6, 7 years remaining in his career, but had already established himself. That was uh, a cool moment where I started to feel like, wow, if like, the main player, not only on the 49ers, but in the NFL knows my name, well, it must show you I'm doing something right. And then many years later, uh, at NBC Sports Bay Area, doing an interview with Steve for the 49ers Talk podcast. And we sat down, it was at the golf tournament in Tahoe, and we're sitting down, and, we start the interview. And he says to me, he goes, Matt, we've known each other for a long time. We've been friends for a long time. And I thought, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm friends with Steve Young. And it's not anything I set out to do, and it's not why you get into the business. But after a guy's career is over, it's kind of a neat thing to reflect upon, because, we see these guys go through unbelievable highs and incredible lows as well. And it's always just a good reminder, to be able to keep things in perspective, show empathy, and treat them as they are. They're human beings just like you and me. All right. So that's a very timeless episode of this video on my YouTube channel. If you like it, let me know. If you want the more updates or you want more of these, let me know. In the meantime, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe, turn on your notifications, and like and comment. And that's it for now, except for I do want to say just my deepest condolences go out to Charvarius Ward and Monique for the loss of Amani Joy. And it's just an absolute tragedy. And anybody who's a parent, or heck, any human who isn't a parent, can really just feel that pain and feel for them. And I wish them all the best as they try to get through this period of time. So once again, thanks for watching.